Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center today with Rod Layton. Rod, can you tell us a little more about what you do here and why this organization is so necessary in the community?
Yeah, the CJC, Children's Justice Center, was started in 1991. We were the very first ones here in the Ogden area. There's now 23 different centers around the state, so we've actually got a CJC in every county now. So it's completely covered. So what we do here is we basically interview kids. We are on a referral basis, so parents can't just walk into the center and say, will you interview my child and find out if they've been abused. We deal with 4 or 5 different things: sexual abuse, physical abuse, drug endangered children, and then if they've witnessed a crime of any kind, say a domestic violence situation, then we would bring the kids here. The theory behind the CJCs and why we developed this in 1991 is we found that children are intimidated a little bit by police departments. So if you have a child, say, walks into a police department to be interviewed about an alleged allegation that took place, the first thing they see is police cars. They see guns, they see uniforms, and so they're a little bit under the impression that they've done something wrong. So in 1991, we decided we need to change the way that we do this and make it a more comfortable atmosphere where a child can tell their story. Just tell us what happened. And so we go through a referral system. If you make a report to law enforcement or you make a report to the Division of Child and Family Services, they will then call us, set an appointment. You will come in, we'll be ready for you. We greet the families, we talk with the parents. We come into one of the interview rooms and we have professionally trained interviewers. You know, one of the things we found is it's very difficult to interview a child about sexual abuse or physical abuse.
And why is that?
It's very specialized. One of the things you can't do is you can't lead a child with leading questions.
And what would an example of that be?
An example would be, your uncle did this to you, didn't he?
Okay.
That's a leading question. That's not admissible in court.
Okay.
We can't do suggestive questions, which is kind of the same thing. Did your uncle take you into the bedroom? Okay, that's a suggestive question. And so when we form our questions, they're very specialized, such as, can you tell me what happened?
And do you ask them on a specific day, or how do they know when you're talking what happened? Is it usually a one-time incident, or is it long-term?
It could be both. A lot of kids don't report immediately, and so the cases that we see are going to be, they could be from this happened a week ago to this happened 15 years ago.
And then I have another question about the referral. You said if you refer, is it normally parents that are referring? I know that teachers and doctors and nurses are obligated to report if there's suspicion of abuse. So most of your referrals, do they come from, like I said, parents or other people involved with the children?
Actually, they don't usually come from parents. The parents are obviously made aware of the situation, but kids are a little bit hesitant to report something like this to a parent. Okay. And there's a lot of different reasons. It could be one of the myths is that the abuse take place by a stranger. Stranger danger is something we should have never taught. We're trying to get away from it. We don't teach it anymore because it's not a stranger. 99% of our cases are family members abusing other family members. And so kids they don't put up their guard so much because it's family. Right. And they're looking for the stranger. And when it's not, then how do they react? So once that happens within a family, kids are a little hesitant to say, Uncle so-and-so did this, or my grandpa did this, or my dad did this to me. And so they will report to another trusted adult. A school teacher is one a lot of kids report to.
Oh, wow.
It could be clergy. It could be a friend. It could be just somebody that they trust. They'll make that report to them. And you're right, in the state of Utah, it's a mandatory reporting law. So once that person is told, the adult, then they're required to either notify law enforcement or Division of Child and Family Services.
Okay.
and then the process starts. As soon as they make the report, they're also obligated to cross-report.
Okay.
Law enforcement to CPS, CPS to law enforcement, and then they both have to show up here at the same time to work the case. That's the value of a CJC, is everybody that's involved with the case is here at the same time, and you're not doing multiple interviews.
What is the age range that you work with?
We go from under 18 to babies. And obviously we don't interview babies, but we also have a medical facility here. And the medical facility would be used to do, testing on a sexual assault, drug endangerment.
And you have that medical here on site?
Yes, some of the Children's Justice Centers in the state of Utah have medical facilities. Some of them don't. We hope someday that everybody will have a medical facility, and those are under the direction of Primary Children's Hospital.
Okay.
So that is tremendously valuable to work these cases.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an interview take place and then they disclose sexual abuse or drug endangerment or drugs in the home, if you don't have a medical facility, you've now got to take those kids either to a pediatrician, or you've got to take them to a hospital in an emergency room. Those folks aren't trained to do those type of exams.
Well, then you would run into the same issue that you would at a police station. I mean, a lot of times the child goes to a hospital and they're getting shots, they're seeing a doctor, sometimes they can get anxious. So that sounds like a huge benefit to have it all here.
It's really the core mission of the CJC. A child comes in, they're greeted at the door, their questions are answered. You have all the agencies that are going to be working on this case in the same place at the same time.
Wow.
So you do one interview.
Mm-hmm.
The police department gets that interview. The Division of Child and Family Services sees that interview. So you're one interview. The medical is done here on site. Mental health resources are given to those kids here on site. So everything happens. These cases are incredibly devastating, and they're very stressful, and government is not efficient most of the time.
Right.
And so in this situation, we've made government very efficient. And you can go, if you follow the process and do it right, we can get it resolved. And we can get the case either goes to the prosecutor, or sometimes the cases don't go to the prosecutor.
Do the children have to testify in court?
They have to testify. The reason they have to testify is because the defendant in a case has a constitutional right to confront their accusers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have that child in place so that they can be cross-examined, then the defendant's you're not meeting that requirement of the Constitution that they have a right to do that. But it's not a problem, though. It really isn't. We prepare the kids, we work with the kids. They know that they're going to be there, and so it's pretty rare that we actually even go to court, because these cases are done in a manner now that is, we cover everything, and so most people accused of this or of the allegation, they'll go in and plead guilty to the charges, and so there's not a lot of court time.
Wow, that's good. I was getting nervous when you were saying that the kids would have to testify. That makes me nervous for them.
Yeah, and if you do a case right and you have the evidence in place and it's corroborated and you have a good interview, that's why the interview is so important. The interview is the foundation of the case. So if we can bring them to a CJC or Children's Justice Center where you have the right type of environment, you have the right type of room.
Yeah,
even the room makes a difference.
This is one of the interview rooms.
This is an interview room.
This is comfy. Yeah. I like it.
It's very comfortable. In fact, kids will say, it's like being at my grandma's house. And so we say, yeah, this is kind of like grandma's house, and so you're going to come in, and when they first come in, they're kind of surprised.
Right.
They walk in and they're like, whoa, this is kind of cool. And we see a complete transformation from the time they walk into the door and they're terrified, until they walk out, and then they're skipping, hopping out the door, and they're so relieved that it's over,
Yeah.
that it was comfortable, and that it's off their shoulders.
Yeah.
They want to tell you. They just don't want to tell it in certain situations.
Right, and that makes sense. I mean, that
Yeah.
definitely makes sense. So tell me how many kids do you normally work with throughout the year here at this location, and then statewide, if you.
I'm not sure on all the statistics statewide, but
Okay.
we do, I can give you kind of an example. We do about 650 interviews here.
Wow.
But when you talk about it, it's difficult to say we have 650 cases,
Right.
because with every case of especially sexual abuse,
Mhm.
it affects 25 other people. When you say that you have a family member sexually abuse another family member,
Okay.
that doesn't just affect the victim.
Right.
That affects the siblings, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, the community.
Mhm.
I've seen communities completely split up over these cases, like some saying this person couldn't have done that, and the other side saying, oh, they did.
Yeah.
And it's devastating to people, and it can ruin families, it can ruin communities.
Mhm.
And so we always want to make sure that we focus on the victim and not everybody else.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we try to do. So if you look at Weber County, doing 650 cases in Weber County, that really doesn't have that big a population compared to, say, Davis County.
Mhm.
We do more than Davis County does.
Wow.
But their population is twice as big, and they have twice as many kids.
Why do you think there's more here in Weber County over?
You know, we've tried to figure that out, why there's more here than somewhere else. I don't think that we have more cases. I just think there's more reported here for some
I
reason.
see. Mhm.
And it may just be the demographics, the type of, the awareness that we're getting out there. I don't know exactly. We really haven't ever been able to just say this is what it is.
And speaking of demographics, do you think that there's a certain group that maybe this happens to, or is it kind of across the board in all walks of
Absolutely
life?
across the board.
Wow.
We know we get every race, every financial class in here. It does not have any parameters. It's everybody can be involved, and the thing that's enhanced it, I think, and the reason our cases are actually going up is social media. Social media has caused tremendous concerns for us. If you look at a case, even 15 years ago, before social media, if you have a perpetrator that's going to groom somebody and get them ready to be sexually abused at some point, there has to be contact. I have to meet you. I have to talk to you in person. Now that grooming takes place over Instagram or Facebook or Kik or some of the other apps that are out there.
Right.
So our kids have a tendency to make friends without ever meeting them in person.
Do you think that's a large amount of the cases that you have now? Because you said that it can happen within families. So do you think that a lot of the cases are online, or is it just a rise in that number?
I think a lot of the cases that we see, when I say family, the other side that we see is just acquaintances,
Okay.
friends, neighbors.
Not strangers.
They're not strangers.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of times that grooming starts to take place, and even with families, that happens. That grooming starts to happen just with social media, texting back and forth, You're so special, and I love being with you, and then and for some reason we believe every single thing that's text across the, if somebody says it, it's true, and so we see a lot of that in the schools. We have tremendous problems in the schools right now with nudes. Okay, send me a nude. Okay, I'll walk into they'll do it right there on the spot. They'll walk right into the restroom, take a nude picture, send it, and so a lot of our cases may not be directly tied to social media, but there's always a component. of social media or pornography. Pornography is always a big part of it too.